I consider myself not just an occupational EHS specialist, but an industrial hygienist.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Today's guest is a seasoned EHS&S leader with more than 2 decades of experience partnering with organizations to strengthen regulatory compliance, achieve ISO conformance, and build world-class programs in environment, health, safety, and sustainability. Throughout her career, she has helped companies identify meaningful opportunities for risk reduction, drive continuous improvement, and align safety and sustainability initiatives with broader business goals. Her expertise spans a wide range of industries, including thermal spray coatings, foundry operations, aerospace, cosmetics, biotechnology, oil and gas, and pharmaceuticals. She has also been recognized by her peers with a nomination to serve on the board of directors of the American Industrial Hygiene Association, reflecting her commitment to advancing the profession and protecting workers through science-based practices. She is currently the director of Global EHS and S at Charles River Laboratories. Vanessa Brady, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Jay. Really happy to be on this show. Finally.
I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for investing your time with us today. Really grateful to have you. That's a
Happy to
lot
be here.
of different industries. You have got such a large amount of experience, Vanessa. That's why I was so excited to get on the show with you here. So, given all of that experience and given your journey throughout your career, what would you say is your biggest lesson learned?
You know, when you look back and reflect, and I was really lucky to work for such amazing companies over the years, but the one thing that comes back to you, you're not going to be successful if you're doing it by yourself. Don't allow environment, health, and safety to become isolated. Make sure that that becomes embedded with other departments. So if you want to go and do the arc flash assessment, you're not going to do it by yourself. You want to start vetting contractors, you're not going to do it by yourself. Get a team together. Make sure you have the right stakeholders together. If it is a platform, or if it is a review, an assessment, you really want to make sure if it's legal, HR, procurement, or other business partners, you need them. You need that feedback. When you engage them early and you work out that process, they're going to be pushing that initiative for you. And that's what really, truly you want to see. Because I always hear EH&S saying, you know, I'm trying, I cannot get the machine guarding done. I'm trying, I can't get the money for this. Well, who are you speaking with? Who are you working with, right? Contractor management, for example. You want to make sure that if you're going to be vetting contractors and you want to get ISN or Avetta or one of these other vendors, make sure you have a team behind you working on this. And it's not just environment, health, and safety leading this initiative and going against the C-suite. By engaging them early, working out their workflow, you're going to be more successful to truly be able to implement it well.
That is such sound advice. I have a couple follow-ups for you there, Vanessa. Thank you. That was really thorough. Wanted to ask you what advice you'd give someone who may not have good flow with the topics you're talking about, and maybe the engagement isn't quite where they want it to be. You mentioned engage early, and I think you talked about workflow. So say someone they're having trouble with this. What advice would you give them?
Relationship building. There is no ifs or buts, you know, and sometimes it helps when you hear your leadership saying, go get it done, right? But it's all about that relationship building, and don't just start getting to know the people that you're working with, even if they are from different departments. Learn about what they love, learn about their hobbies. find a connection with them. So later on, when you start coming in and say, hey, Joe, let's start talking about this, you have a very different, they're going to see you in a very different light. The workflows, the leadership, yes. If you get a group together early, get the members from different departments, bring those ideas to the leadership, more likely to get those approved. And then that leadership will go to the different business units, especially in global companies, because if their boss is saying you're getting it done, doesn't matter what EH&S has to say.
Mm.
If your boss told you you're going to do it, you're going to implement it. But really, it goes back, get to know the people that you're working with.
Very, very good advice. And I heard engage leadership, right? Like get that relationship built with the departments and engage leadership, and the message comes from them too.
Absolutely.
Good. Outstanding. You did mention, I wanted to ask about IS Networld and Avetta too, because as here at Colutus, we're very familiar as service providers, right, as contractors. But any advice around ISNet or Avetta that people should know?
Love them. Love them. I mean, there are some, and there's few other companies. I'm not just saying that you need to go and we are using Avetta right now, and they're absolutely fabulous because you look at management system like 45,001 and it tells you have to do a contract management, and then you go into, let's say you have 10 different sites and you say, well, are you collecting the insurance information? Are you collecting the experience modification rates? Are you checking that they have a process in place and training? If they're an electrician, did you get a copy of the certificate? Who has the time to do that, right? Everybody expects that some other department is collecting that information, but at the very end, it's not being collected. No one's doing that due diligence. You putting the company at risk, right? And how do we make sure that we reduce the incidents from the contractors? We don't, with the regulations that you have in place, right? Whatever that is, if they're going to be coming in and doing confined space, you obviously want to make sure that they have the right documentation in place and whatever that looks like. So I think that these softwares are truly amazing because they will do it for you.
Mm.
And then you don't have to worry. So if you have 10 sites, 100 sites, and there's a way that you can do it identically, that's the way to do it.
I agree from our perspective too. It doesn't automate, but it does streamline. And you're right, it's extremely thorough too. And in your seat, like you said, who has the time? Yeah.
And one of the new things I have seen in Nevada that I was really impressed was the financial checks. Like imagine working with contractors that just filed for bankruptcy, like which you would have never known. Or they had OSHA fatalities. You would have never known if it wasn't for this company that comes in and checks all the time and gives you a heads up. Versus you have one person doing it for the company, maybe they're going to check once every 5 years, and that's maybe not enough.
Great stuff. Great topics discussed already. We just got going. What would you say, Vanessa, you and your team, this could be your current role, this could be years ago in any company, but what would you say is like one of the most difficult situations you and your team have faced over the years? And, how did you handle it?
Every company I have ever worked with, they always have the same issue. I don't think there's a perfect solution. So like I said, I've been very lucky. I worked in all these different industries, but when it comes to management of change, no one has that perfect solution. So what does that mean? What is a management of change? It means that there are changes to either resources. It means that you bought a new piece of equipment. It means that you just upgraded a building. Maybe you just bought a class 4 laser, whatever that is, the new chemicals, the carcinogen. There has to be a process of what that looks like. Someone has to do that due diligence before you buy it, before you bring that laser on site. That now you never used lasers before. Now you brought a class 4 laser. You need a laser safety officer. You need training and maintenance and guarding. And it goes on and on. But if maybe you involved a group of people to review those risks ahead of time, for example, laser class 4, maybe they would have been able to reclassify it as a class 1 and reduce all the headaches that you might be facing. So management of change for new products, new equipment, new chemical is a challenge.
And I think you indicated there's no, like, you didn't say silver bullet, but like really perfect solution here. But what have you seen work around this topic?
So one of the companies of Estee Lauder, there was a quality system, so not EHS, a quality system that you were able to engage with. So that kind of work because it was a platform with workflows, making sure the right people are engaged to review that. When you buy new equipment, there's so many things that needs to be reviewed. Hey, maybe you might be bringing corrosive chemicals, and now that's going to require an eyewear station. You wouldn't even think of that. Like 3D printers.
Mm,
I'm sure you have seen 3D printers
sure, sure.
being brought into the offices, right? An office that doesn't have the ventilation, doesn't have the eye wash for those corrosive chemicals, doesn't know what to do with the waste, and now you just have hazardous waste. So that's what I mean by management of change, getting a team engaged, reviewing the risks, the hazards, and identifying from a compliance perspective, do you need a new permit? Do you need additional training?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
need to just put $500,000 to add ventilation? Like things you didn't even think about. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to get a 3D printer and stick it in this office.
Outstanding. Yeah. I think that leads into, well, I have a couple topics I want to ask you about here. Let's start with global. So you sit in a very unique position as you see a global perspective with your company. And you and I chatted briefly at one point about how could the US companies better embrace or choose to embrace some of the best practices you're seeing throughout the world in other countries.
The tool that really stands out for me is on capital projects, construction projects. A lot of the other countries, especially the European countries, legally require a safety rep to be present at the construction sites. In United States, it's not really, you're not going to get a fine if you don't have a safety rep, right? There is a general duty clause, but nowhere does it say that if you have contractors, subcontractors for so many hours, you would have a designated safety manager, safety rep overseeing it, built into a regulation. I was like, wow, I wish we had that. The second one is a safe system of work, sometimes known as a permit to work, a process where if you're doing conducting any high risk activities, you would complete a permit to work process. So it's not just a form that you're filling out like a checklist, but it's really about how you're going to do the job. Describe it, identify the risk, identify the hazards. It's only drafted for one day, or unless you need to make changes and then you go back and you have to modify it. But really, truly terrific. Because when you look at these accidents that happen, especially with the subcontractors, it's because nobody connected. Nobody brought them together to fill out some kind of risk assessment. And when you start working with high risk activities where you have employees using cranes or being on top of the roof or confined space or high voltage electrical work, that's where you really want to make sure that a robust risk assessment has been completed, has been signed, everybody understands what controls need to be in place, what PPE needs to be worn.
Understood. Now, is this something that was this in place when you joined your current role, or have you been working on this with the team?
Um, Excellent question. So in some countries, legally required, so they have it, right? In some of the US countries, we starting to implement that. This is definitely best thing that any company can do, a safe system of work, a permit to work, where you really identifying all the hazards and controlling. There are now like Avera and ISN for contractor management. There are many platforms these days that can help you with the safe system of work for these high risk activities. So really happy to see that.
Mm.
I think Velocity EHS, for example, has a really good one.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Coludis, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Coludis is there to make hard work easy. Visit coludis.com today to get started. And we hadn't talked about this at all prior, but throughout the world, why do you have any sense of why some of these processes are more robust in other countries versus right here in the US?
Because of the fines. How come, they will go to companies and fine them £500,000 versus here you might get $20,000. So why do so many companies in the United States say, well, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to pay the $20,000.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. So kind of a left turn with this question, more of a fun one, if you will. What do you love most about your job, Vanessa, and why?
At the end of the day, I consider myself not just an occupational EHS specialist, but an industrial hygienist. And the thing that I'm really most proud of is being a certified industrial hygienist where I can practice exposures to different chemicals and hazards, biological. And I think that safety, like falling and tripping and cutting yourself, is very visible versus occupational health is not. Exposures, for example, to asbestos will take 30 years. So I really think that occupational health, industrial hygiene are so critical to the profession. And that's the reason I spend so much time volunteering at the American Industrial Hygiene Association. This organization really gets it and goes out there every single day pushing this agenda. It's not just agenda, it's the safety of these people working with chemicals every single day. And it's something you can't see. A cut you can see. You cannot see when someone just got chemicals in their lungs. It's an exposure that you'll see 10, 15, 30 years ago. And that's the reason industrial hygiene, a true, well-robust program, will have a baseline done for all the chemicals that you're working with. You're going to do repeat exposures and monitoring. So to me, that's what I love. And I can talk about industrial hygiene for a whole day. There is nothing better than industrial hygiene because that truly identifies hazards and risk from a different perspective, what's under the surface and that's not visible.
I did feel your passion around this, Vanessa. It's fantastic. What got you, where did this passion come from?
Well, I used to never even know what industrial hygiene is until I was doing my master's. And it's all about that one professor that you get, right? And for me, I went to school in New York City and I lived in New York City and my master's degrees was like a few blocks. So I lived on East 9th Street and this was like 20th Street. And my professor, Dr. Caravanos, was the one that really inspired me to become an industrial hygienist. The way he would talk about it, he lived it, he breathed it, and this was everything. And I think when you get inspired at that age in college, you want to become just like him. You want to go out there and help people.
I love that answer. Wow, I love that why. That's powerful. Very powerful. Now, just to speak to the American Industrial Hygiene Association just a bit more, I believe you shared that you have been reelected or appointed for another 3-year term on the board.
Yes.
Big congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. For anyone that voted for me, thank you. My 3 years are up and I have been reelected for secretary-elect. So thrilled to continue what I love to do.
That's fantastic, Vanessa. That's awesome. Good for you. I want to go towards risk assessment, but prevention through design is something that you really believe in. And if you could speak to that a bit more and expand on that, please.
We are very lucky in the United States to have so many wonderful standards that have been published through ASSP on prevention through design. And 20 years ago, people really didn't discuss it. They would just say, okay, we have confined space. Let's look at the regulation and let's read the regulation and for the confined space, let's make a list. Let's get the training, emergency, rescue, and on and things, the ventilation that you needed to do. But what if instead of putting all that time and effort, you redesigned it, right? So
Mm.
you look at the definition of a confined space, don't make it limited. Make two entrances, put lights, put ventilation, and boom,
Mm.
you don't have a confined space and you don't have to spend $200,000. So it's risk reduction and you're saving so much money.
So let's, if you would kindly walk us down the path. So this may be a newer topic or an old topic for certain
Sure.
listeners, right, in our audience, but like, could you walk us down the path of like, you want to, if a company said, I want to get better at that, I want to use prevention through design, where would they start and what would they do?
Well, I would definitely recommend getting the standard, which is published. There's one for construction, there's one for the industry. And then look at your risk assessments. And most companies should have one, right? But
Hmm.
that has to be updated at least once a year unless you're making changes. And when you look at your risk assessment, what are your top five? Highest risks, so maybe they cost a lot of money to maintain. And then you look at them and they say, well, we have to go on the roof um, because the HVAC is on the roof, and that's the highest risk because if somebody falls off the roof, you know, right?
Hmm.
So how can
Sure.
you redesign those roofs? Stop making flat roofs, right? Why don't you right away put some kind of walls around it? And boom, you just got rid of your highest risk. So it's really about identifying what is keeping when I speak with leadership, I always say, what keeps you up at night? What is the one thing that really stresses you out? And maybe if fall protection is an issue, do something with the roof, redesign it. The next time that they're stripping the roof, redoing it, consider putting some kind of walls, some kind of guarding in place, but really redesigning it. Think of the light bulbs. You put it so high that now you don't even have a ladder to reach. Well, why? Maybe change the location. So really start thinking of that risk from a different perspective. What do you have to do to get to that? And can you maybe come up with a different entrance, different exit, different location, eliminate it? So it goes back to the hierarchy of controls. So prevention through design, look at the hierarchy of controls.
Mm.
Elimination, can you eliminate it? That's what prevention through design is.
Hmm.
Chemicals, maybe you can substitute for something safer. Then it's the engineering controls, administrative controls, and the PPE. But the first one, elimination. How can we do this without it? Can you
Mm.
come up with a different system? Instead of lasers, can you use a different technology? What does that look like? Right? So it's really exciting. When I go out to all these conferences, we always looking at solution to the hazards that we have. But what if we didn't have those hazards?
Thank you very much for going through that so methodically. That was very helpful. Very helpful. Now, I know, on that note too, I know you're in a global role and you're not on, quote, the factory floor, if you will, or anything like that, or in a lab. But if you were to give some advice to someone who is in a role like that, from a day-to-day perspective, how could they embrace some of the topics that you've just spoken about? What would you say to them? Embrace and execute. Sorry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And it goes back to sometimes you talk to the employees on the floor and they say, well, I don't really see the EH&S people. So what do these EH&S people? Go out on the floor and speak to the people and try solving the solutions with them. And actually the employees that are doing it, they know those solutions. They already know what needs to be done, just nobody asks them. They don't get invited. So some locations have really good safety committee meetings with you have a good percentage of management, EH&S, quality employees from the shop floor, but really engaging them and working with them. And very likely they will already tell you how to fix that issue.
I'm smiling and I love that because there was another guest many months ago who was on and I forget the saying he used, but he basically said something similar, like talk to the people who work with it and see it every single day. That's where all of your innovation's going to come from, right? And then leadership can do something about it and they can work with that good data.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for ergonomics. I remember we used to have a welder and the guys would give him his ideas and he would go into his little shop and then, you know, Few days later, he comes up and boom, he just solved a big safety issue. So absolutely.
So I have another advice question for you. In your global role, like say someone else was in a role such as yours, what would you guide them on?
I have to talk about volunteering. If you've been doing this for over 20 years, start giving back. Start volunteering. There are so many great organizations, and obviously AIHA is where my heart is at, but AIHA or ASSP or National Safety Council, go out, volunteer. There are young students and professionals just coming into this field. Mentor them, grow them, develop them, right? So that's one. And then the second one, listen. Think
Mm,
people just want to talk and they want to impress everyone how much they know about environment, health, and safety. But why don't you just stop for a minute and listen to what the business needs and see if there could be some kind of conduit that can better serve everybody else.
that was some very sound advice. Very sound. Thank you. Well, that was an amazing walkthrough of a culmination of years of knowledge and implementation best practices, Vanessa. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, though, what about you? Like, do you have any time that isn't dedicated to volunteering and safety and all that passion that you have? What else do you enjoy?
Well, I think, you work and you volunteer, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my husband, who I don't think anybody believes in me as much as he does. 32 years later, my Duncan, and I think by having a strong believer in you, uh, that you're on step 2, and he's like, yeah, you can make it to step 3, and someone that is your biggest cheerleader. So I really appreciate that. I kind of want to thank my husband for everything that he has ever done. And you have kids, everybody's playing sports these days. So I think I do spend a lot of time being a taxi driver for the tennis and softball of the world.
Yep, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. Oh, that's great. Sounds like you're very lucky woman, and I'm sure and I know he's a very lucky man too. So good for you both. Good for you both.
Thank you, Jay.
It's very common that people will reach out after the show. So if they wanted to ask you more about any of the topics you talked about, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn, and I would say that's the best way that you could definitely reach out to me. I always respond.
Excellent. I think that's how we met. I know that's how we met, actually. So yes, you definitely respond. It's been an absolute pleasure, Vanessa. Thank you very much for your time and your wisdom. Really appreciate you being a guest on the show today with me.
Thank you, Jay.
And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in again to Facility Rockstars. You can get us at facilityrockstars.com, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. What a great episode, and we'll see everyone next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.